Hey, what's up everyone, my name is Thijs and welcome to DualWielded. This is my devlog series about my game Incaved, a roguelike high-bit style 2D platform dungeon crawler that takes place in an ever-expanding Russian cave system where civilians took shelter when nuclear bombs were dropped during a fictional Cold War. This devlog focuses on combat, something I'm pretty experienced with, to be honest. Last year I actually got punched by my neighbor's 5-year-old daughter, but I managed to get the upper hand with a nice little chokeslam, so I guess you could call me kind of an expert in combat. So I started with making the most basic enemy I could think of. The enemy that ignores the player and walks to the left. And when it reaches a wall or a ledge, he simply turns around. But how could I find a realistic way to justify a creature fully ignoring the player? Well, probably blindness. Basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to implement a blind creature minding his own business for the player to smack with a sledgehammer. Which also reminds me of that time that my neighbor's son actually kicked me and I got a little mad and after making the script for this enemy, which right now just has a placeholder sprite of a... Oh, is that a floating hammer? So I looked up what kind of animals live in Russia. It'll be a mutated creature that got tickled by radiation. Instantly I realized there should definitely be a mutated bear boss fight later in the game. But next to bears and tigers, Russia doesn't have that much interesting animals. I mean, what the heck is a Dipodidea? Oh, it's just a gerbos. Never mind guys, I figured it out. What? Now, this dude already looks like he's kind of bumping into walls, which is exactly what I'm looking for, but at that point I thought of something else. I mean, what creature is already blind and already chills underground? Exactly my neighbor's son, but also moles. And what kind of mole already looks like it's mutated a little? Naked mole rats. So I simply googled, does Russia have naked mole rats? And I found the Russian mole rat, also known as the giant mole rat. Whoa! So I drew a giant naked mole rat sprite and replaced the hammer with the mole rat and... I started animating it, but I made the exact same mistake as the one I made when I animated the player by forgetting to change the pivot points to realistic positions. Which obviously I changed and that kind of messed up my animation. But at the end it worked in my favor because making animations was made way easier and quicker. If the giant mole rat gets too close to the player loses a heart and one of 3 different bite animations is played. To keep things just a little bit more interesting. Get it? A little bit? That's when I started focusing on the player's attacks. So I made 3 different attack animations. The first one just happens when you attack. But if you time a second attack correctly, you'll be able to chain it to a second attack and even a third attack, allowing the player to perform combos. A theme I like to bring back in my game is variety, since variety is realistic. By variety I mean that, for instance, there are 4 different rubbish pile sprites, out of which one is randomly picked when the rubbish pile is instantiated. The same goes for the rock full of titanium, or even the fact that the enemy has 3 different bite animations. Currently the enemy looks a bit bland. It's just a giant mole rat that grew in size due to radiation, I guess. So I thought it could be cool to create different skin mutations on the different body parts that are all randomly chosen when the enemy starts existing. So now there are 4 different head sprites, 4 different body sprites and 2 different front and back leg sprites, resulting in a total of 64 different mutation combinations. And yes, that means there is a small chance of the enemy not showing skin mutation at all, but also it can look like me 5 years ago. Whenever I play other games, I'm like, oh, boom, baby. Oh, what? Hey, let me, what the fuck? The attacks need more feedback. So whenever you hit the ground with that first attack, pebbles jump up from the ground. Now it must be very clear when you hit an enemy, and as you guys probably know by now I really love a glow effect, so I was kind of thinking of... No? Okay. So now when you hit an enemy, it flashes white. Never mind. It flashes white and it gets knocked back a little before he starts walking again. When you eventually kill the mole rat, it flashes red instead of white and a death animation is played. Afterwards, he slowly fades away and destroys itself. Except for his legs, of course. So I thought the red flash is pretty nice because that instantly shows the player when they killed the enemy. It's similar to some Call of Duty games changing the hit marker when the bullet killed someone or when it's a headshot, and that the new Super Smash has this moment when it's 99.9% guaranteed that someone dies in this situation. Right now the player still needs invincibility frames and a bit more feedback to being hit. So the player also flashes white when hit and... Hold up, let me just... Okay. And now has functioning invincibility frames. Also, he gets knocked back a little. I'm very happy with this system so far. I'm still planning on adding some other stuff for extra feedback, like camera shakes and dust particles, but believe it or not, I too would like these devlogs to come out at a somewhat decent rate. I know it's a shocking thing to hear, but for the next devlog I'm planning on adding these extra feedback parts, some feedback from you guys that you left in the comments, and probably camera movement. Since, you know, we've been looking at this specific screen for a pretty long time, and I'd say it's long enough. Also, I got a pretty cool announcement to make. So I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to add something to the game. I made this canvas of a painting, and as you can see, the content of the painting is still missing. In my Discord linked below, you can download the image as well as a color palette with which you can fill the canvas. Draw whatever you want and post it in the right Discord channel for the rest of July. At the end, I'll pick 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 18 of your beautiful art pieces and place them in the game. You'll be able to find it in an abandoned place in the cave where people took shelter once and they just left their painting there because, well, who would want to keep this horrible painting, okay? Maybe in the future there will be more events like this in the Discord, so make sure to join if you're interested. And well, that's it for this devlog. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll hopefully see you next time.
Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.